Thank you very much for joining me for part 8 of the Zentangle OCEAN Project. Now, so far we've learned quite a number of different tangles and patterns, as well as cartoon elements that will be incorporated into that final drawing that I keep mentioning so often. But today I wanted to offer one additional option that you could choose to substitute for another or add as an additional item into your drawing, depending on the layout that you're going to prefer to make. So in case you didn't want the treasure chest, for example, I wanted to give this additional option, which is a statue of Poseidon. Let's take a look. Now, the idea of drawing a statue of a character might seem a little intimidating at first, but we're going to break it down just like we do all the other pieces. So hopefully it will not scare you once you see it. But we're going to start by drawing a simple circle to represent the head. And then we're going to draw a larger orb to represent the basic placement of the body. And let me once again shut down my light there, and I think you can see that better. So we've got the head, where that body basically is going to go, and then we're going to draw kind of a U shape, an upside down U shape, where the rock formation is going to go that this statue was carved into. Now let's also add a couple additional details. We need an arm that's going to come down and go up, and a hand will be about there or so, and then we'll have a trident that will be in his hand there. And on this side, as his shoulder comes down, the arm's going to come out, but it will not be a complete arm with a hand or anything. It's just going to be as though part of that hand is broken off due to the age of the statue and so forth. And then, of course, we're also going to need some kind of hair. In the Poseidon statues that I've seen, he always has long hair and a long beard. So I'm just going to sketch a little bit. Maybe his hair floats up because of the ocean water where he lives as the king of Atlantis or something like that. And we'll have this like that. Now, we're going to draw some other elements here, but with that sketch, we can start to decide where things are going to go. We're going to put the eyeballs here. They're just simple little dots. We don't want to try to add too much detail for what we're doing. And then his mouth is going to be right between the eyes, but down just a little bit. So we're going to add a little dot for that. And then the beard, of course, is going to come around here. Now, this might look really goofy right now, but you'll see that once we start to flesh out these details, it actually will look much more impressive than you might think once we have our shapes in place. So we'll make a little shoulder up here, bicep that comes down, and that underarm there, the tricep, goes up into the hand. Of course, we're going to have a few knuckles here, and then our thumb across. We don't have to have much detail, just that impression that we want to leave. And then the trident shape, we'll draw the handle coming up there into the hand. And let's make this a centerpiece, so it's going to have a big, like a spear tip on it. And then down here we'll draw the other portions of the trident, sort of with a barbed hook on that as well. And that is our basic trident shape. And we're going to have his hair. It looks pretty crazy right now, like, man, what kind of hair does that guy have? But it's going to come out better than you think when we start adding some of our details. And again, it's still a cartoon image. We're not trying to create the world's greatest drawing of Poseidon. Now, when his arm comes down here, I'm going to just draw like a circle as though that hand is broken off. And then his body, of course, will still be back in here. We'll indicate a little bit maybe where his chest muscles would be, a little bit where his abdominal muscles would be. And now we just are drawing a rock formation here. So I am also going to add a couple ropes, just sort of like rotting ropes. Maybe been under the sea here for a while. Maybe they're even carved into the stone to signify some element of the character here. And we'll have a piece of these ropes just kind of coming down here. So I'm just adding basic sketch details. Maybe here's where his bottom outfit is. And then this is just some jagged rocks that are going to be remaining, or maybe they were never carved to begin with. These are just some pieces, and I'm creating little shapes here where I'm going to add dark spots that will distinguish different areas of these rock formations to make it look more natural and more realistic once we carve. So that little sketch, now you may sketch slower, you may sketch faster, but it's very simple if you just do little lines at a time. Now, we're going to ink this in with an outline and start adding some details to our character that the shading will help bring out as well. So I'm going to start over here on the trident. And you can refine our initial details that we had, because with our pencil we were just shading very loosely without a lot of precision. And here we're just doing some refining as we go. Now, we don't have to have a lot of detail here, but just enough to convey what we need, so that we can, at a glance, we'll say, oh, that's a picture of an Atlantean or of Poseidon. And you don't have to know any anatomy or anything like that for this type of simplified drawing. Just have to be able to follow an example. I'm going to make some hatch marks here for that broken off hand. Alright, he's already starting to come together. Now up here, we'll do a hard outline on the outside of his hair. It's supposed to be very flowing and long hair. And he has some pieces that are coming down here in front of his shoulders and chest. And then there's some that are hanging out behind. And we also want his beard. Like that, and just the very subtlest hint. And well, it's darken in the mouth and the eyes, very tiny. Because we're going to rely on some shading to bring out details in his face. And now we want to start adding little dark spots here and there in the hair. Because remember, this is carved of stone. It's not supposed to be real hair. So we just want to create some shadow areas that will show the deeper cuts into the stone and will indicate some details that these original sea folks put in to this drawing, I'm sorry, this statue. Just some little marks here and there that will indicate those details. And now we're going to add a little bit of hatching in these areas to bring out a little additional detail and shadow that will help when we add our graphite. All right, now the rock area, and I'm leaving little details here for my ropes that I created with my pencil. I'll just refine them here as well. And we can imagine that these were carved in or that they're just laying there. But of course, if he's been here very long, if they were real ropes, they might have decayed or fallen apart by now. So perhaps it's best in our imaginary world to think of them as carved right into the stone. Just additional details there that the original artist decided to do. I'm going to add some details here on the trident as well, just little tiny hatch marks that will help give that tiny little shape some dimension and volume. Alright, now as we draw the rocks, we're going to ink in up in here, because these areas are in the darkest recess. They're going to be hard to see. There's lots of carving going on there, or that had gone on there, and so it's just created a deeper recess into these areas. And the same with some of these other components as well. I'll show you here as we go. Alright, so now when I'm going to create some darkened areas, some inked in areas, as though they're recessed into the rock formation here even further. And that gives this rock some sense of shape. It's not just a flat piece of something. And I know I say that often in my sessions here with drawing. I just want to emphasize those important characteristics of creating a volume so that our shapes aren't flat. That's just the boring part of drawing, whether it's a cartoon or a realism, a still life, a portrait. It doesn't matter. It's the detail or the essence and appearance of detail that really makes our drawing come to life. So that's the difference too from when we first start drawing, and everything kind of looks the same, just very flat, very one-dimensional. And that's not anything to be ashamed of. Everyone has to start that way. We all start by trying to capture what it is we're looking at or what it is we're imagining, but we often find in those beginning days that our ability to do that is less well developed because we just haven't realized yet how to create some of those effects, how to capture. A lot of it has to do with our observation of the world around us. Once we begin drawing and doing things like that, we start to notice how shadows play on things, how light plays on things, and how we see what we see. Why it looks like a shape is due to those values, those differences in values that we see as we look at things. And that is how we can learn to imitate that and to create those same kinds of appearances in our artwork. Whether it's in an ultra realistic or whether it's in a cartoony, very simplified manner, it's the same. We learn those same kinds of techniques. It's just a matter of degree and how that all fleshes out. So there, we have our basic drawing. And we've added whatever details we can with our pen. And so now we're going to add some graphite. sure which pencil I was going to use. So I'm going to add some color to the entire drawing just for tonality. But we'll darken certain areas to make them stand out or recede, if you will, as a shadowed area or a further away area. But I don't want it to look like it's white, so I am going to add graphite pretty much to the whole thing. But I'll just use some hopefully good effects of shading and blending to enhance the inked effects that we've already created. And I'm going to put a little graphite up on his face, but I'm going to use my little eraser to remove some of that in a moment. That will create an appropriate highlight where it will best serve our vision here. Alright, so let's blend some of this. Shape it a little bit. Alright, now my little eraser, I'm going to put little highlights here on his forehead. And on his cheeks, right below the eyes. Just kind of like that. And then I want to add a tiny, with my pencil, a tiny bit of graphite where his nose would be. May have to touch that up again. And that little shadow gives the impression of a nose there. That little bit of a shadow. And we can add highlights on his arms. If it got washed out with the graphite when we were smearing around there, and maybe up on some of these other outer parts, maybe on the top part of his beard, just regaining some of the contrast so that it's not all dark. Alright, now this is very, very tiny, so the fact that we can get that much appearance of detail in here is just meaning that we took our time and we tried to convey the best sense of cartoon realism that we could right there. It's such a small shape. But that is our Poseidon statue. Now, we can do one last thing if we'd like, just for practice sake again. Let's add with a little darker graphite here. I'm going to add some shadows on one side. Again, that sort of water shimmer that we were looking for in the treasure chest one. I'm going to add some dark along this edge. Just in some few spots, and then let's blend that a little bit outward, making it very light as it goes out. Just creating that ocean shimmer, so to speak. And then we'll put some of it over here, but without adding more to it so that it's even lighter on this side. It just brings that image out a little bit more. So there we go, our finished Poseidon or Atlantean drawing, indicating a statue carved into stone at the bottom of the sea, as we bring our entire drawing together very soon, starting, as a matter of fact, in the very next video in this series. But for today, I thank you so much for joining with me. I hope again that you've enjoyed the process and it was good to challenge yourself a little bit with something different and out of the ordinary. And I do hope that you enjoyed that, and I look forward to showing you our final drawing when we get started in the next video. Thank you very much. Take care now. Bye-bye.